Hey guys, welcome and thanks for joining me on this series of videos. I'm gonna be walking you guys through my process of designing and creating the characters and just going through my pipeline and try to explain what goes in my mind when I'm doing some of those things, and also just different tools and techniques that I use to sketch characters for a concept, or also the techniques that I use to make it for production. So you can see for this project I didn't had a specific concept. We're also going to be talking about that through the next videos and through this series of how to prepare your portfolio if you want to work as a character artist, or what goes through my mind when I choose the projects that I work on. So we're going to be talking more about that very soon. So let's get started on this one. You can see for this piece, I'm just starting with a sphere, and I'm just gonna straight go through Dynamesh and just play with the shapes. That's usually what I do. You can see I already made some mistakes for symmetry, so I'm just gonna duplicate and then mirror the mesh and just keep using Dynamesh. Again, you see through all this that I don't really get attached to any of the forms or meshes, or I don't care about topology or the resolution that my meshes have. I try to keep it at somewhat reasonable resolution so I can add details, but I don't care too much about all the technical aspects at this phase. I'm just pretty much just playing with the shapes. This is something I usually do on all my characters. I try to split the lower jaw, so when I keep using Dynamesh, I don't merge both of the meshes together. So there's something kind of standard for when I'm sketching something. I don't know exactly what I'm going for. I knew for this one that I was probably gonna go for something more like a skull shape, just because just kind of playing safe on this one, so I don't get frustrated or have to start over. I know I didn't have much time to share something with you guys, so I'm doing something that I'm comfortable with. You can see I'm just pulling stuff around with the move brush and then going back with the damp standard to add those cuts. Pretty standard stuff, but pretty much just playing with the shapes. I didn't have references at this point. You can see later I'm going to start bringing in more references of just real skulls, or some work from different artists that I like, that kind of gonna inspire this piece towards the end. But here, pretty much just playing with the shapes, going back to like the side profile, and then doing more of the front profile. You see kind of adjusting some of the shapes there. And this is something I see a lot when people are starting in ZBrush, or even when maybe they don't have a lot of just experience sculpting stuff, where they get very attached to the shapes early on. And you saw at the beginning I was just pushing stuff and pulling stuff around, and you see like here on the neck that I'm just really destroying the shape and then Dynameshing it so I have what I need to sculpt on top, and then going back and then starting adjusting. You saw that I had probably too much resolution on that piece, so I just lowered the resolution in the Dynamesh so it's easier to manipulate the mesh. And again, anatomy, I can't really talk much about anatomy here, but you know how important it is. Even if I'm sketching something, understanding the shape and doing studies just about anatomy. I could have done this whole thing just focusing on anatomy. I decided to just do a little bit more of design oriented and just more about process in general. But yeah, I can talk enough about how important anatomy is for your projects. One thing that I do a lot is starting with meshes that already exist in my files, just to save time. I'm speeding up the video here, a lot, but when I'm doing this, it's also like still fast. So you saw that I took a piece from the jaw, deleted the rest, and then duplicated to create the horn shapes, and that saves me some time of like appending a mesh, making it a polymesh, adding the resolution that I need on the Dynamesh. If I'm starting with a piece that already exists in the file, it already has all the information that I need. I'm doing, you know, adding some horns and keeping on a different subtool because I know I'm gonna move that stuff around. And going back to the head now and trying to add a little bit more of the shapes of the skull. And it's something it's interesting because I try not to spend a lot of time in just one mesh. You know, I could have spent a lot of time just getting that skull to look like a skull or be anatomically correct. But again, on this phase, I'm just thinking more about design and trying to understand the piece overall. You see it when I do this. I play a lot with colors too, so we'll see later on. I'm gonna start just throwing some basic colors. There we go. And that definitely helps just understand more of the design choices that I'm gonna make. You know, just adding that little black on the eyes just gives me so much that I can, you know, wrap my head around and try to design around that. So the mix of colors and sculpting is a big thing for designing. I've been trying to do a lot more design work at this point in my career. Early on, and we can talk more about that in the future videos, but early on I was doing a lot more just copying or trying to interpret a design from an artist, from a concept artist, and that's pretty much what you know, the job is working as a character artist. Of course, it changes based on your position or your studio, but for a game studio, it's pretty standard where you're gonna get a concept or try to design on top of that, or work with a concept guy to come up with something cool. So I was trying to build up my portfolio on that, but now, you know, as my skills, more production skills evolve, I'm just trying to play more with design and try to create more stuff. Now that I know, now that I think my production skills are better. Again, just saving project. You know how ZBrush is. Shouldn't even be saying this here, how important it is just to save your files, but you see me doing a lot of that. So one thing I also do, I just keep a primitive on my file and I keep duplicating it. Again, going back to like saving time. You know, if I have to append every time I need a primitive, and this is a very simple sketch. You know, there's only a little, you know, some accessories, so I don't really need a lot of that, but I try to keep primitives on my my subtool so I can duplicate and move them around. So it's just saves me time. Try to make a hoodie here. Again, going to like the very standard skull. Oh, this is something that kind of annoys me on ZBrush when everything is dependent on the scale of your mesh. So you see my brushes were big enough because my meshes were too big. So I just used the transpose master to scale all the pieces. With the new ZBrush now, you can do that without needing to merge all your subtools using transpose master. But here I'm still using the old version. I'm very cautious of upgrading my ZBrush just to keep my files working, because if something's not working, then there's no backwards it's not compatible. Here I'm just customizing the UI, adding the light information to the left tab, so it's easier for me to play with the light around. And this is important when you get to the phase of refining more of the shapes. I'm not at that phase right now. I'm still just trying to design some stuff, but I'm just getting the light there, and using a standard material will give me a better idea of what I'm doing, because you can get lost on you know, your mat cap information, or if your material has cavities, that kind of gives you illusion of some of the stuff that you have. So just trying to get just a standard thing, standard material. Adding the eyes now, so getting to more of the phase of adding more of the shapes, since I'm happier with some of the design choices that I have right here. And this is pretty standard, but just getting applying a material for the eyes, using a toy shader. In this case, I have a couple different mat caps that have different reflection for the eyes. And again, it's all about just getting your brain used to you know, something a little more polished. So getting some nice reflection in the eyes is something that help you with design as well, since you're seeing more of the what the product should look like. And as you can see, I go back and forth a lot with Dynamesh. You saw there was a kind of broken topology there, so I deleted and then Dynamesh it again. Really not trying to think about really a lot of technical aspects at this point. You see on the next videos when I go back and recreate all the geometry, and then we can talk more about different techniques that I will use for different types of production. This right here, if I would do a concept or start painting over a render, I would probably stick with Dynamesh. But for different production types, I would just use different techniques. For brushes, you see I don't use a lot of stuff. To this point, I'm pretty much just sticking with clay, dam standard for kind of like the doing the cuts. Move, of course, like you can see now. I use pinch quite a lot for just getting stuff tighter. So you see like the edge of the cloth, I'll probably use pinch to yeah, right there, to like just thin that, get some of the thickness out of it. I do use inflate for the opposite things, but that's pretty much it. Here I'm gonna just start sketching more with color, just to understand a little bit of the patterns. And it was influenced by Rob Bliss, some of the death masks that he did, getting some of those ornaments on the top of the head. Initially, at this point, I was thinking I was gonna just do a mask and have a human face behind it, but as the model kind of evolved, I got away from that idea and just stuck more with just the skull kind of demon. Again, playing safe here. So I'm starting to refine a little bit more of the shape, since that idea was stronger in my head. And I wanted to create something that I guess felt a little more ornate, or a different type of skull. So you can see him playing with the nose shape and adding more ornaments overall. And you see that kind of carries through the entire design. All those ornaments that I started doing in the head, then I started going back to the face and adding a little bit more of that into the shape of the bone. And that's something that I guess it's important just in designing something, just to have that continuity. So you see me playing with the light in the shadow, because ZBrush has a nice just viewport shadow, but that doesn't give you not even close to what the final render would be. So I keep playing with that and just seeing how my shapes are reading. I do a lot of that on the throughout the entire design, and since it's very fast, there's no reason not to. And now you can see just going back and refining some of the structure. And at this point, that's when I start looking for more references. Now that I have an idea, and I try not to get attached, and then you see at the beginning to like just the one reference, just so I don't get I guess locked on this creatively on when I'm sketching something. But when I get to this point and I'm happy with the stuff that I'm designing, then I start looking for references. So here at this lower jaw, it goes back to what I said of just since I liked some of the ornaments that I was putting on the skull, going back then and just trying to add more of the continuity through the design. And that's something that it was in my head. And I started playing with the lower jaw, getting some of those curves into the lower teeth, and that's something that kind of stayed on the design throughout the end. I'm not sure if I love it, but it was something unique at that point that I think it was pretty cool. And going back to the eyes and just adding a little bit more life to it. For eyes, I usually just paint pretty simple for just getting the iris, and then I think the toy shader with that reflection helps a lot. And then now, since I'm happier with the design of the skull, then I'm going back and just adding color information again. I think we talked a little bit about that early on, but that's something to me that's very important when you're designing it. Again, you can get lost of just as a sculptor, just trying to sculpt something to look the best and technically be impressive piece, be refined and all that. But when you're designing it, unless you have a concept or you have the design in your head exactly how it's going to be, it's very important to just throw some colors in it, so you have a better idea of how much detail you put in a certain area. If something's darker like the eyes, you might not need as much detail as you're thinking as a sculptor. And that's a very tricky balance to find. As a sculptor, you want your stuff to be the best statue, or have the best, technically be the best, or a refined piece. But I guess when you're designing it, it's very important to play with color and shape at the same time, and mass. You see all the teeth. I'm just pulling it, cutting it, erasing it, doing it again, erasing, doing it again. Again, not trying to get attached to any shape that I put on early on. It's very good to also save backups of your file. Every time I'm saving, not every time, but every time I do something that changes the shape or add something that changes the design, I save a new file. And then later I would go back and look at all my revisions, because something might get lost through this process, something that I'm liking early on, and then you can look at it and see, oh, that was stronger. So I try to keep those revisions and then go back and look at some of the early versions, and not get attached and just add it back if I think if it's working better. At this phase, there's nothing technically that is stopping me. Again, it's just mostly about time. If you're doing this for a production, or if you have a specific time that you want to hit, like in this case, I couldn't really spend that much time because of just the time that I have with you guys. But there's nothing technically that's stopping me for erasing it and start overing again. So it's the same thing when you're sketching something in a paper, or if you're sketching in 3D. Not having the block of just the tools, it's very important. So again, here it's all Dynamesh, simple shapes. You try to keep it as separate as you can on the subtool, just so you have that freedom, and you're not erasing some of the work that you've done, or you don't get completely blocked by the subtool. So like right here, imagine if both of those pieces, if I was sketching all this into just one piece, the lower jaw and the upper jaw, every time I would Dynamesh, or every time I would mess with the teeth, I'll probably mess up some of the work that I did. So if this was a more complex piece, I'll probably start breaking it up even more. That nose piece will probably be something different, and that just gives me the freedom to pull and move stuff around without destroying the work. Playing with the lights. Again, I think at this stage the design was pretty strong. I could see me finishing this and getting to a level that I was going to be happy with, and this is very important, because at this phase I feel that the model should almost speak for the final product. Like, you can spend a lot of time on this to make it perfect. You can spend a lot of time making all the wrinkles perfect, and I think as a character artist, for what we do, this is very important. And we'll talk about this in the next video, but knowing what you like to do and what you want to do, what you want to be doing professionally, it's very important to know where to spend your time. Like, I wouldn't recommend you spend a lot of time trying to design something if you don't like doing that. There's space for every type of professional in this industry, and each studio has a different style or a different position for a character guy. Anyway, again, here I'm just going to be adding more shapes and playing with, trying to refine more. You see in the next video, I'll keep doing that, but I'll just take one step further and start adding more accessories and trying to complete the piece in a way, because I still feel that there's something missing. and then we're going to start refining it, cleaning up all these meshes, and going from there. I could have, just play a more of a quicker time lapse, but I can just go through some of the stuff that is going through my mind when I'm, when I was doing this. But also we can talk about just process in general and some of the different decisions that I made to this point. You can see at this phase I could probably up the resolution of the Dynamesh because I'm already struggling with some of the details on the smaller areas, but again, I strongly fight against not getting attached to a certain area and adding more details because I know I can spend a lot of time on that. So I try to just add shape and add volume with the resolution that I have, and trying to sell the idea that there's more to it in there, but not spending a lot of time trying to add detail. So you can clearly see now when I don't have resolution on the head. And I know I'm going to have to redo all those details, but at this phase, I'm again just trying to keep that design flow like we talked before, adding more of those ornaments and the shapes of the skull, just to keep that continuity on the design. So I'll do the same thing for the horns, adding all the I guess the flow of the curves of the shapes. It's very important to look at all the angles and see if all those curves are flowing nicely. So you see me rotating, left to right, front to back, and seeing if all the shapes are flowing nice. Easily, I see models online where people are, have a specific shape on the design, but then it just doesn't hold up on a different view. So I'm trying to be careful here and make sure everything flows nicely. And as I do that, I start adding a little more secondary informations to the design, and you see that changes a lot how the piece feels. So that goes back to what I said early of saving different versions and then going back and look at, this was stronger, and maybe I added too much design or detail information here, and completely change how the piece used to feel. So keep that in mind.